Hello everyone, has anyone asked the question why so many Russian devs make war games in general and World War II games in particular? My own pet theory involves Vladimir Putin and his insatiable greed for Lebensraum secretly training an army of gamers for an eventual war with Europe or China. However, I see one possible flaw in the plan. With the gaming diet consisting of Doritos and Gatorade, good luck getting the fat fuckers into any military spec cockpit. This leads me to the question, Warthunder, what's it all about? Warthunder is a World War II combat MMO where one can choose to fight with either air or land vehicles. After choosing whether you want to die by being smashed into the ground or blown into the air, you get to choose your country. I chose Germany purely for the ME-262 and the Horten HO-229. At this point you choose your control setup, and this is where things started to go wrong for me. You see, as flight simmers we tend to look down on poor imbeciles who only play air combat games. Just as those who play Arma or Squad look down on those special people who play COD. Setting up my hotels and IR tracking in record time like the pro I am, I quickly entered the fray. Well, the tutorial mission actually. This was my first inclination that maybe I was a little overdressed for this game, that I'd worn a top hat to a chav's wedding or put on a condom to have a wank. As I hurtled towards the ground screaming and swearing like a Malaysia Airlines frequent flyer, I realised I'd have to rethink my strategy. Being more of a single-player gamer with a little trepidation, I entered the multiplayer arena. It's not that I hate multiplayer games or those that play them, they have their place. It's just that I believe that that place is far away from me in space and time. Preferably a place in 1940s Poland with a nice little motto about labour and showers that didn't quite work. For those entering Warthunder for the first time, you'll notice you start off with fairly crappy biplanes. For those unfamiliar with aviation terms, a biplane is an aircraft with twin stacked wings. It does not mean it will happily fuck both you and your girlfriend on the same evening. My first impression of the overall graphics was quite favourable. Despite making the game accessible to gullible trannies who buy Apple products and spurgs who insist on gaming with Linux, the PC version of the game plays quite well and the graphics look quite smooth. My only bugbear is that flora and buildings have a habit of popping in and out like Jehovah's Witnesses at my door when I'm in the middle of a porn binge. You get points for hitting ground and air targets, and extra points if your team wins. Depending on the game type, you also get points for capturing airfields or bombing targets. There are three main modes: Arcade, Realistic and Sim. In Arcade, when your plane gets shot up, you move to a new aircraft until you run out of aircraft. When the mission ends, extra points are awarded depending on success or failure, or various feats you've performed during the mission. This is where the MMO element of the game comes in, as points earned are used to unlock new features on existing aircraft, train crews and research new aircraft. There's also a nice little feature where you can test fly aircraft. There are a number of different views available which are fun to explore. For an arcade game, the cockpits are actually quite decent, at least on a par with FSX. Sorry FSX players, but the sim you've sunk thousands into is just now shit. The flight modelling, like FSX, is also negligible. However, one has to bear in mind that it is an arcade game, it's not a sim and it's not a survey sim. And if one ignores the flight modelling, it is actually great fun to fly around in these aircraft. The map's terrains and tasks are quite varied when they cycle properly, and the game is addictive. Because it's a free-to-play MMO, there's always going to be that Sisyphean sense of drudgery. However, if you enjoy the core gameplay, building up your aircraft and collecting new aircraft like your mum collects STDs, it shouldn't be really an issue. Server queues are almost instant and the community is generally well populated and fairly laid back. Like all multiplayer games, you will encounter the odd genital louse who claims to have been balls deep in all of your female relatives or decides to ram you out of the sky. Despite my frustratingly limited skill set, my experience overall has been positive. To get back to my initial question, what's it all about? Warthunder is a semi-historical, semi-fantasy arcade air combat MMO. It's about shooting things down, shooting things up, capturing air bases, supporting your teammates, and calling them all a bunch of cunts when they fail to protect your bomber. Like a handjob from a filthy cracko, it's become one of my guilty pleasures and I heartily recommend it. So much so, it's one of the games I plan on covering in a new series. So until then, I thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to dislike or tell me to go fuck myself below.